I started roofing professionally in 1997, and I roofed until the first part of 2009. And what was going on, we had the housing bubble just crashed for everybody in '07, '08. We put ourselves in a position while everybody was losing their businesses and moving back into their parents' basements. Because at the time, everybody was a contractor. Anybody that could swing a hammer was a contractor in like 2006. I was half owner of a roofing company, and we were in a position where we had plenty of work. We had contracts with the LDS chapels and all that. We had contracts with the United States government for like Air Force bases and military bases and that kind of stuff. So we had plenty of work, but it was all over the country. And so we were in Grants Pass, Oregon, and Grand Junction, Colorado. It was great work, and I was making money, and my wife was happy with the money, but she wasn't happy with me not being home, and I wasn't happy at all not being home. I've got so much stuff I like to do at home. It was really frustrating for me, so I decided I had to get out of it. And we were on a job, big job. We'd been on it for a couple of months. We had a couple of months left. I was down talking to my partner. It was the end of the week, and he was just getting off a phone call, and he said, "Hey, we just got that job in Tennessee." And I was almost like somebody else was talking, because I hadn't even thought about this. And I just said, "Do you want to buy me out?" And once again, it was nothing against working in Tennessee. It's just I had children learning to walk and learning to talk at home. He was like flabbergasted, like the whole, sure? Like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? And I said, "I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm done with roofing. I've done it for 12 years solid now, and I think it's time to move on." I went home that weekend, and I told Jamie that I quit. And we'd been fairly new starting our business. I'd only been in business for myself, roofing, for 2 years. And we were just getting to the point where the paychecks were steady and they were big enough. Like, we were starting to put money in savings and that kind of stuff. And I just went home and told Jamie that the money's going to stop. Like, we're going to get probably one more check and then it's over, other than getting the money from the business. But we knew we were going to have to invest that into something else. She wasn't happy, but she did ultimately trust my decision. I have a large friend group, support group, and we're talking like families. So it was Sunday afternoon, and any given Sunday afternoon, there's 40 to 50 people at this house, just friends and families, and whatever. The kids are playing tag, and the grown-ups are talking about the weather or whatever. The topic of that day was Matt is selling his interest in the business to his partner, and what's Matt going to do now? And so I was part of this conversation. I don't even know if I was a willing participant, but I was participating. And one of my friends there said, "Hey, you should get into towing. I just got my car impounded and it cost me $200 to get it back out." And he said, "And the guy who owns a towing company, his business is for sale." So I just thought for a second. I'm like, I could do towing. So I got the guy's number and I called him Monday morning. And by Thursday, we had an agreement, and I was going to buy his assets and take over his rental agreement there. So we did the deal, and I bought his assets for way more than they were worth. And in retrospect, I look back at it and I'm like, well, at least it's not a student loan that I'm still paying off. So it was like college. Like, I paid for an education, and it was good for me. So bought the assets, and I started my own new company, Red Ryder Towing. And shortly after I did that, one of my neighbors, who owned the biggest towing company on the east side of the county there, said, "You should have come talk to me. My business is for sale. I would have loved to sold it to you." And I said, "Well, there's a couple things that have happened recently. I started a roofing business, sold it, bought the assets of a towing company, and bought a house. I'm in no position to buy a valuable towing company." So I had to wait till 2013 before I had enough capital to go back and talk to him about buying his business, which we eventually settled on a price, and I purchased that. So now I own 2 towing companies. I have been running his phones and running his company for a little while, and then for another towing company in the valley. At this time, I was running 4 towing companies and staying very, very busy, but I was hungry and I was hustling, and I needed to get that paycheck back up to what the roofing paycheck was. So yeah, I didn't sleep a lot, did a lot of towing. But as I was trying to grow my tow companies, I realized that the kind of business I was in, radio advertising wasn't valuable, and that was dying anyway as a whole. Yellow pages, not good for towing in general in a small, more rural place, because people that break down aren't from the area and they don't have phone books, and phone books were dying in general too. But they had this thing called social media. It was the internet. It was brand new. It's actually kind of old, but it was brand new to me. And so I jumped on Facebook and I started trying to promote my towing company on Facebook. And as we'd get calls in, we'd get these off-road jobs. And I was advised not to do the off-road jobs by everybody in the towing industry. They said, you'll ruin your trucks. You won't make any money doing it. You know, let the guys that do it, like there's local good old boys that'll do it, right? And they were right. I did ruin my trucks and I did lose a lot of money trying to do those jobs. However, it drove me to come up with a new way of thinking about these off-road recoveries. And if my big tow trucks weren't the right vehicles for the job, but these good old boys were doing it, well, what were they using? Well, they were using Jeeps. And I wasn't an off-roader. My off-road experience was like ATVs and sandrails, like sand dune riding, and then getting stuck at the dump in a roofing truck. So I bought a Cherokee and started modifying it to do what I needed it to do. So I just engineered my own suspension and steering and all that stuff. And I would work on it and then use it, and I'd do a few jobs with it, and then I'd reach a job that it wasn't very good at, and so then I'd take it back and modify it. That's how that evolved. But what was really happening on the social media side is I was promoting my towing company with, you know, pictures and short little videos, and it was getting no traction. You know, if I've got a Nissan Altima with a bad alternator in the Lynn's parking lot on the back of my rollback, oh, it's a beautiful picture. And 7 people are like, I think that's good. But I don't believe they really thought it was good. I think they were just trying to support me. But if I've got my little Jeep Cherokee hooked with a kinetic rope to a 1-ton Dodge diesel with a toy hauler buried to the axles in sand, I would get an enormous amount of engagement, and then a lot of comments that basically revolved around 2 points. One was, I would love to see you pull that out with a Jeep, and there's no way that Jeep pulled that out. I thought, well, I need to start putting little videos on here, and I would. I'd put little videos on, and I'd shoot videos for my friends and just send them texts. And I was getting encouragement to put this on YouTube. That way I could actually earn some extra cash doing that, and it would be easy for people to see it, even, you know, my friends and family to see it. So it took me an awful long time to figure out how to do that. So I'd been getting these kind of suggestions since 2009. It wasn't until 2019 that I actually took it serious. And as soon as I decided I'm going to do YouTube, now I had to learn how to do that. And I didn't have anybody to mentor me. I learned as much as I possibly could about filming and storage. And really, iPhones are what made it even possible. If I would have had to do a separate camera, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I had my iPhone with me, and I just started filming with it. And it was rough because you have to tell a story. You can't just film like, there it is, well, see you later, you know. I did a lot of research about that. Like, why is this YouTube channel about birdhouses that makes really beautiful birdhouses, why is it struggling? And why is this one that makes mediocre birdhouses just soaring? And it's the storytelling and being able to bring the audience into what you're doing and make them feel like they're a part of what's going on, and have interesting arcs. Like, here's the problem, and now watch us solve the problem and get it out of there and send these people on their way. So I worked hard trying to figure out what that recipe was. Before I ever filmed a video, I practiced. I'd sit in my office and I'd set up my iPhone, and it was so funny because at this time, I don't want to ever portray my wife as unsupportive, but she was wondering what was going on, and she didn't know the potential, and neither did I. I didn't know what it could grow into, but she would come out and just laugh at me because I'm just in there. And what I started doing was just telling stories of the day. Like, what did I do today? I'm not trying to find an interesting story to tell. It was actually a quote by Jerry Seinfeld that hit me really hard. He said, comedians don't tell funny stories. They tell stories funny. And I'm like, wow, these good YouTubers, they don't tell interesting stories. They tell regular stories in an interesting way. So I kind of worked on that. I wanted to see if that was a skill that I could actually develop. And I worked very hard on it for like a year before I ever filmed a video. I wanted to be able to drop a video that was worth watching. And I didn't. I might have been too cautious. And my advice now is, if you want to make YouTube videos, make a YouTube video. If you wait till you're really good at making YouTube videos before you make one, you'll never make one. So I dropped 5 videos at once. I had some help editing because I wasn't an editor. I had a friend help me edit. The first 14 videos on my channel are edited by my friend. And during that time, I taught myself how to edit. There was like a $20 download for LumaFusion, and I did everything on my iPhone because I am not a tech savvy guy. I'm actually not a businessman. I'm not a tech savvy person, and there's no reason I should be here. So if I am, so can you. So I'm filming on my iPhone, editing, uploading, running the whole YouTube off of there, and I'm starting to get some traction, and it's actually happening really quick. And I'm realizing I can make a business out of this. And within a year, I was comparing my newfound YouTube business to my towing business that was 40 years old, 40 years old, well established, 8 trucks and multiple drivers. And my time is better spent on my YouTube business than my towing business. And then one day, everything came crashing down. I was filming a job out to Lake Powell, and my phone froze up in a manner I've never heard of a phone freezing up before, nor since. It bricked so hard that I couldn't do anything. I could make phone calls, but I couldn't access any data. I couldn't open Facebook. I couldn't open YouTube. I couldn't open the internet browser. I couldn't open my pictures. I had no access to my videos. It was just nothing. The only icon on the phone was my phone icon, and I could make phone calls. And I spent about a week trying to get people to help me unbrick this. And I had exceeded whatever limit. They put some limit on the iPhone, and I met that limit and exceeded it. It took us a long time to start erasing things, and I lost probably 2 or 3 videos on that phone. And I realized that this was not sustainable. I can't make videos at this level with the phone that I had. That's when I decided I'm gonna have to hire some help and get this thing going. And I've been trying to learn how to be a better storyteller and tell these interesting stories. I feel like I live a fairly interesting life. I'm out there doing interesting things, and we never know exactly what's gonna happen. So it's a good fit for me to tell these stories through video. It got to the point where I sold one of my towing businesses and the other one's just shut down. It's kind of in hibernation. And I just do this. We're over 20 employees. We just make 3 videos a week. So we just passed 1,000 videos. I've got over 1 billion views and about 210 million watch hours. I guess I can chalk it up as a success. I really do enjoy doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as people watch what I'm doing.
If you get a ticket, the first thing you should do is text a picture of it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. You'll be facing costly fines, risks of suspension, possible jail time, points on your license, higher insurance premiums, and a lot of bad things that they can help you to avoid. You can also find them at the link in the description below, but the Ticket Clinic is a nationwide law firm with brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they've got attorneys everywhere, and that's what's most important, because a local attorney will know exactly how the local laws work, know the people who are in charge, and get you the best outcome possible. So text a picture of your ticket to 305-305 or click the link in the description below to fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.